Fetch lands, specifically these 10, are widely considered to be very good cards, staples of Modern, Legacy, and Banned in Pioneer. But what about Commander? Do you need them? Okay, let me be clear. No, you don't need anything in Casual Commander. If you're having fun with your deck, then you shouldn't feel pressured to buy expensive cards for optimization. But let's say you already have some fetches, or you could get some. Then, should you play fetches? Before I answer that, if you like my videos, stay tuned till the end for an announcement. If you check out any of my decks on Moxfield, other than budget lists, I play fetches in basically all of them, even monocolored ones. The reason is, fetches are basically the most versatile and powerful cards in the game, and only get stronger with every typed land that gets printed. So I want to give some examples of why these cards are so good. But first, I wanted to talk about deck thinning. This is a common pro-fetch land argument that I think is misguided. I could show you why with math, but I really don't want to do any math, which is why I had my buddy, Salubrious Snail, do it for me.
Hi there. Basically what this comes down to is just that 100 is a big number. Cracking a fetch turn 1 changes the odds of drawing a land by less than 1% on a land count of 36. And even if you crack a fetch each of the first 3 turns of the game, your odds of drawing a land turn 4 is only changed by a whopping 2.4%. You could say that this stacks up over time if you run a deck with a lot of draw, but if we look at the distribution of lands drawn in the next 5 draws, they're also not much different. The effect of thinning becomes slightly more pronounced on a very low land count, like 15 or 20, but overall I don't think thinning is something worth thinking about as a reason to play fetches.
So if deck thinning isn't a good argument, why should you use these quirky lands? Color fixing is one of the obvious reasons to play fetches. If you're playing a blue-black deck, Marsh Flats can get you blue mana. Even though it can't get islands, you can get an island swamp. And this only gets better with more colors and triomes. But if we take a closer look at these lands, we'll see that almost everything on this card can be used for synergy, starting with paying 1 life. This might seem like nothing, but life loss can draw you cards with Villa's Broker of Blood, or if you're hellbent on making Death Shadow work in Commander, searching your library can also be used for synergy. If you used a card like Brainstorm or Sensei's Divining Top to set up the top of your deck, and you know that those are cards you don't want to draw right now, shuffling can get rid of those. Or if you have any card that lets you play things from the top of your library, sometimes these can get slowed down if you run into multiple lands and you're out of land drops. But the fetches allowing you to shuffle can help you keep going and chain multiple spells together. At that point, it's almost like scrying on a land. Also, the meme value of fetching to cast Panglacial Worm is awesome. Grabbing a land of a specific type also has a few synergies. One is that there are 2 lands entering play, so fetches double up your landfall. So a monocolored landfall deck will probably still want them. But also any land with a basic land type that has an effect can now be used at instant speed. That Arid Mesa can be a surprise blocker, and Mystic Sanctuary at instant speed can be very powerful when comboed with a cantrip, or just using it on an end step. There's also that cycle from Shadowmoor, which has a couple of different small utility effects that can be useful in the right deck. The word sacrifice alone has a ton of synergy. Any card that does things when you sacrifice permanents can be used here, like Corvald, or when lands go to the graveyard like Titania. And also fetches ending up in the graveyard is another reason to play them. For example, my Jace deck uses fetches to help him flip faster, or in my casual decks I like to play Crucible of Worlds. Crucible plus any fetch land in a monocolor deck basically means you can hit your land drop every single turn for the rest of the game. And now there's that new Undergrowth Recon, which can also be used for additional ramp with fetches. And cards in the graveyard by themselves are a resource. Spells with Delve, like Treasure Cruise, or escape cards like Breach are both really good with fetches. And there are many more mechanics that care about cards in graveyards as well, like Delirium or Revolt, which cares about permanents leaving your battlefield. And they keep adding more graveyard mechanics each set, making cards in your graveyard more powerful basically every set. And whenever they print new lands with the land types, fetches get even more powerful. We saw this with the recent Surveil lands. So if you're watching this in the future on your Apple Vision Pro 3, fetches will likely be even more powerful than they are now. So for all those reasons, I think fetches are great includes in almost any deck, even monocolored ones. Now let's say you watched this and decided, damn, I could really use those lands in my deck, but they are expensive. Well, luckily, Modern Horizons 3 is going to be reprinting them, so hopefully these 5 will get cheaper, but there are also some budget options. Cards like Evolving Wilds and the self-sacrificing lands from New Capenna are able to do most of the synergies I talked about, other than grabbing duels or non-basics. Alternatively, you can play slow fetches. They are essentially fetch lands, except they enter tapped and you don't pay life when you use them. If you're on a budget and want the power of fetches, these are honestly not that bad. And if you're in a slower, lower power meta, then having your lands enter tapped is probably not going to be the end of the world. But this is just my opinion, so if you think differently, let me know in the comments below. Thank you so very much for watching my video. And huge shout out to Salubrious Snail for helping out with this video. Go check out his channel, linked in the description below. And if you want to see more of my content, subscribe for more. But if you want to support a little bit more than subscribing, check out my Patreon. I just opened it. There's a couple of different tiers with different perks. Hopefully I'll see you in the Patreon Discord. Thanks again.